recording is paused. There we go. All right. Good morning. So this is going to be very interactive with our questions and stuff. So if you guys, at the end, we'll have a Q&A, but if you have questions that you want to pop in the chat, feel free to do that right now as we get going. So we still got a couple people jumping in. All right. So let's jump in. Let's talk about a little bit of history. So I asked Shannon to be here. And first, I feel like this topic is a really big discussion, and it's a discussion across the board in all marketplaces. And I wanted to get you guys together to understand, because as I'm coaching people across the United States, agents don't even know what's happening with this right now. And I'm not sure if that's from a broker perspective, Shannon, that maybe the brokers don't know and they're not educating their agents, but I feel like what's about to happen with the clear policy could potentially be a really big disruptor in our marketplace. And we've already seen a downward push this last year. I have a team I coach in the Kansas market. Their year over year on buyer side transactions, they were down $80,000 in commission. And why is that? Because we're seeing a downward push on commission. And so we're going to jump into that a little bit. But first I want to ask Shannon is let's just talk about clear policy and how and why, because you shared with me, that this really has to do with fair housing. It's really about a fair housing issue. So Shannon, can you give us a little bit of why clear became an issue?
So there's two policies that are kind of at play here. There's the clear cooperation policy, and there's a reason that kind of came into play and again, I wasn't in any of these meetings and I don't understand, I wasn't there for any of this, but this is what I've been hearing was the intention. And the clear cooperation policy, the intention was created the coming soon status and MLS and those kind of things was really centered around the fact that in some of the smaller markets, you had brokers who were they weren't sharing listings on the MLS and therefore kind of pushing out and not making properties available to other smaller brokerages who, because they had maybe 100 agents and this other, smaller company had 3, they would just sell within their 100 agents kind of a thing. And they weren't offering these properties out to everyone. So that became the gist of clear cooperation was that everybody shares equally. If you're a member of the MLS, then you all share equally, essentially. The other policy that's coming into play with a lot of the litigation and the Department of Justice things, and from what I understand, is the cooperation and compensation policy in MLS that requires us to offer that co-broke. And that's the one at the moment, combined with clear cooperation, and then this new level of transparency. The NAR has basically passed the policy where all of the cooperation will become transparent to the public. So on any co-broke will be shown on all of these IDX feeds and these places where you see listings being advertised on the internet. So that's the little bit of background. I mean, that's the very short version. What's happening right now is that there are a lot of different class action lawsuits. There's a lot of different legislation and litigation going on. And the gist of it is that sellers are making the claim that they believe, I'm seeing that comment down there. Can everyone hear okay?
Yeah, if you're not on mute, if you could go ahead and put yourself on mute, that would be awesome. I don't know, Shannon, it might be your earbuds. So let's see.
Maybe it's not AirPods. Hold on, let me try and switch these over. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, that's better. I think it was your earbuds.
Sorry about that. I was trying to keep the noise down. It didn't help apparently. The argument from the seller's perspective is that they feel that they've been paying buyer's agents. And we all know that's not true with a traditional listing. The listing agent or listing broker negotiates a commission amount with the seller, and they discuss how much they want to offer that as a co-broke out to a buyer's agent to bring a buyer. And that's all one commission to the listing broker. And then the listing broker is the one who's essentially paying or offering that out to the other broker. But the argument is the sellers feel like they've been paying buyer's agents, whether that's directly or indirectly. And so that's where I believe, depending on how all this plays out, and it's going to be years in the making, that sort of thing. They're saying some of these suits could go on for a long, long time, but all of these policies are kind of contributing towards there being a split where it's, if a buyer's working with an agent, they're paying their agent. If a seller's working with an agent, they're paying their agent. And I feel like that's potentially where all of this is going in the end, and what they're wanting maybe. So.
Okay. Any questions or comments on that? Cara or Chris, you guys have anything you want to chime in on that?
I mean, I find a lot of times the sellers agents don't even know what the listing broker's paying out. I mean, I know it states that right in there, but I think people gloss right over that. They don't.
Yeah, most people don't see what the commissions are until they see the closing statement, right? And really understand that. So, and I think that as an industry, we've created part of this, right, Shannon? Because for years and years, and myself, I've said it, hey, don't worry, the seller pays me, right? And so we've created this challenge in our industry by having those conversations and that scripting and dialogue. And so we kind of, we've kind of created this a little bit for ourselves. So Shannon, I mean, you already kind of touched on my next question was who pays you, right? Who truly pays you if you're representing the buyer's agent? And I think it's important that we have some better scripts and dialogues around exactly what does that look like so that we can get in front of that with our clients, right? Especially the buyers.
Right. And that's part of the argument is and part of the new policy is that or one of the policies that was proposed is that, agents it's not free for us to represent a buyer. And that was the impression and the words that may have been used with a lot of buyers out there is, hey, hire me, it doesn't cost you anything. Well, that's not necessarily really the way that works, is that we are actually paid broker to broker by a listing broker. It's not the seller or the buyer in that case in that way, for the buyer's cooperation, if you will. So do we know when this is going to happen in MLS or in any of the MLSs yet? Because I know it's already happened in Washington State. Their MLS shows the co-broke. Yes.
Is there any projections on when?
And I have not heard that. No. We have a meeting next week where I might get a little more insight in that. I know, the way a lot of those policies is they go into effect, say January 1, then they have maybe 90 days to put the implementation in place. And then they have maybe another window of time where they're actually enforcing and doing those kind of things. So there is a little bit of process there. I haven't heard an exact date when the hard fast, I don't recall offhand, to be honest with you. But okay. I haven't heard anything from MLS on that
and
yet.
Just for those who are jumping in a little bit late or a few minutes after, what we're talking about right now is that in the very near future, the co-broke that's being offered for a buyer representation is now going to be public information in the MLS, which my understanding is that will also syndicate to all of your third-party search engines, the Realtor.com, any of those that you're using. Is that correct, Shannon?
That's my understanding, yes. Yep.
Yeah, so this could be, potentially, and in my mind, I'm thinking, that a couple things could happen. I think that sellers could look at that and say, why am I paying that? Right? I don't want to pay that. And I also think that buyer agents or consumers could look at that and say, why are you getting paid that? Right? Are you really worth X apples? Right? And so, and I think that potentially the next question is, well, hey, I want some of that. Let me dip into your pocket and take some of that. Right? So I think that this could really, be a challenge for us. So let's continue on with a little bit. Shannon, do you have anything else you want to add to that? And that, who was it? Realology that filed the lawsuit yesterday trying to stop this?
Yes. They have come out and said that they think it's kind of ridiculous. And there's another piece to this to understand is that you have NAR and you have, our membership and our rules that go along with that. And then that filters to different MLSs, and the MLSs, there's a lot of different MLSs. I mean, we have several right here in the state. So when they're making these policies, you're making this blanket policy that then you have all these individual MLSs that have to try to comply with that, which is why they have these timeframes and things. But it's also why sometimes these kind of policies are put out because maybe one MLS, like locally for us, this really doesn't affect or change anything because they've been doing it this way forever, whereas another one isn't. And it's trying to get that consistency and fairness across the board on a national level, if you will. So just as a side note to that.
So Chris and Cara, I'd like to hear from you guys. What do you think about this? And, you guys work with a lot of buyers. Do you see this being a possible disruption in our market?
I guess I don't, I'm not overthinking it. I've used the buyer broker for, I don't know, like 10 plus years. And honestly, the only reason I didn't probably use it like way back when is because it sort of wasn't necessary, because it was kind of a blanket 3% across the board. So like, it was sort of redundant, as far as, us getting paid. But, I realized like, hey, we should have, buyers should be treated just like our sellers. We need it, it's an employment agreement that we have with our listing, on the listing side, we need it on the buyer side too. So I just started employing it even back when again, mostly, 99% of the time, it was the same. It was what I charge, which is 3%. So, and I would go over that but it started making more sense starting like 2 or 3 years ago, when, and I have the conversation, like usually sometimes it's over the phone or early on, or most often it's honestly on my first meeting with somebody, like when we're out, looking at that first house. And I can kind of go through the MLS sheets and show them like, so I say basically like, I charge a 3% commission. There are going to be some listings out there that aren't going to compensate me that full 3%. So on those listings, I am asking you to pay the difference. And I'm nervous right now, so it comes across way better. I'm telling you in front of my clients.
No need to be nervous.
But honestly, I will tell you almost 100% of the time, every time I've had the conversation, and again, in the last few years, it's getting worse and worse, but usually it's half, or now it's even more than half, are less than that 3%. So I'm pointing to like the next house we're going to go look at. This one's a 2.5% co-broke. And I basically just say, on this one, your closing costs are going to be a little bit higher. They're going to be an extra 0.5%.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, I was going to say is I do put that on, I do a cost sheet for everybody when I first meet somebody too, just to kind of show them, hey, this is what, your closing costs look on the buyer side. And I always incorporate a little line that says broker fee if necessary. And I'll put like a little, like 0.5% example, I'll write. But just to, so they know up front, like it's a possibility. So, and I honestly, I've never had anybody push back. They're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Or they might ask me why.
Cara.
They might ask me why. They might say, well, why are the, agents offering less? And I say, because we've really been in a seller's market for a long time. And I think agents and, along with their sellers have decided that that's one way to cut the seller's costs is to reduce that co-broke that's being offered. So that's one way I explain it.
I'm going to come back to that, Cara, a little bit. Chris, I'd like to hear from you if you think that this is going to be an industry disruptor. Oh, you muted yourself.
There we go. Somebody muted me there. It could be. I'm keeping an eye on it and everything. I have not gotten to the point where I've been pretty much using these religiously for about the last 3 years. You just get tired of doing a lot of work and then somebody running off. It kind of remains to be seen at this point. I'm kind of keeping an eye on it, but I'm not going to dwell on it or anything. I haven't gotten to the point where I'm pretty lenient with it. If they're paying 2.5 or 2, I'm going to let it slide. I haven't gotten to the point yet where I'm going after the full 3%. I'm using it mainly as protection because most of the buyers that have run off or gone with another broker, they'll say, well, we didn't have an agreement with you. Every single person almost says that, well, we didn't have an agreement. So that's the main objection, or that's the main reason why a lot of these people run off. And, we've got 2 weeks of inventory right now. So it's just something, it's non-negotiable with me. This is what we're going to do. And we can get to objection handling later and everything, but it's first visit, right away before you even look at homes. You know, I have a packet written up, I have a cover sheet explaining what's going on, everything. So it's, you know, I went through all the Workman success system or solutions, which forget, it was a while ago, but I just went through them all on my own and kind of revamped everything I did in 2017. And there, you know, he had a really good one. It's, you know, everything in real estate is done in writing, just like in business. So let's put this in writing and get you your new home.
Yeah.
So it's right now I'm just using it as protection for people running off, because I'd say almost 95% of the time when a buyer buys through somebody else, they always say it's because you didn't have it. We didn't have an agreement. You know, so
two things that leads into another question that I didn't have on my questions, and thank you for prompting that. But one is a promo for Workman, right? He's talking about BAM, Buyer Agent Mastery. So thank you for that, Chris, because it's a great program.
All three of them. They're great.
All three of them are fantastic. So, and he did that on his own. So, and taking the initiative. So the question that you prompted is, are you guys doing buyer broker or buyer consultations? And so, Chris, I'm thinking you are, right? Doing a buyer consultation before you ever put people in your car. You're having a conversation up front, correct?
We're going to meet in person,
Yep.
or we're going to have a conference call or like a Zoom call. We're going to make sure that we're a good match. I'm going to see if they're realistic for the market. And you know, I don't do a ton of advertising. I have a pretty big sphere where I'll get some past client recommendations. And give you an example, last year, I had a buyer just looked all over, got him a house, and they were super excited. So they started referring me to people. And the first person to call me back, he said, "How much of your commission are you going to give me?" And I said, "Well, it was nice talking to you. Thank you. I am not working with that person." That is the first word out of their mouth. We are not working together. That he's already, I am pre-qualifying him as a buyer and as a client. So right there, that was a huge red flag. And I just said, "Hey, I really appreciate you calling me. Thanks for the time, but I don't think it's going to work out." No. He already started with that. I already know that it's going to be a money grab every single time. They're going to go after your commission all the time.
Yeah. See, and I think that's going to be a conversation now that this is going to be public information. I think we're going to have more people like that, Chris, coming out of the woodwork saying, "Hey, how much of this can I get?" Right. And I really think that, so, and Cara, I want to ask you the same question, but so for me, I am a stickler for buyer consultations. And if you attend any class with me about buyer stuff or coach, you have to do a buyer consultation. Consumers watch TV and they think that what they see on TV is reality, and that is absolutely not. And my consultation is very simple. Go through the purchase contract, all of the addendums, you explain all that stuff, get that stuff signed. And then that helps them to, you know, one, it scares the crap out of them, right? Because I explain all the pitfalls and scary stuff that could happen in a purchase. And then if you get them to sign all of the other documents, you know, you're halfway done when it's time to write a contract, right? And so, Cara, are you doing a buyer consultation?
Can I pipe in really quick,
Sure.
Sarah, with a couple of things? I'm sorry to interrupt, but
You're
I
fine.
just want to back up a little bit and clarify a couple of things. For everybody who's on this call, and there's some people that are not within RE/MAX Professionals, I just want to make it very clear. The rates that Cara mentioned and the rates that Chris mentioned that they charge are completely individually up to them for what they want to have someone pay for their services. So those are not rates that are across the board. They are not rates when we're talking numbers. I just want to make that very clear that that's what they choose to charge a client for what they believe their work time is worth. So just for clarification purposes.
Yes, for being the broker, we should refer to them as apples, right? Shannon likes them to be called apples. So Cara, let's go back to you. What are you doing? Are you doing a buyer consultation?
Yeah, and honestly, like, you know, I might be charging 7% on my next listing and taking 4 and giving 3 to the buyer broker. So, but you know, with buyer brokers, like I have over the years charged 3%. So that may change in the future, but that's what I charge now.
Okay. And what's your consultation look like? You sit down and go
you know, it really varies between, you know, where the client's coming from. So most of our business is past client referrals, and the occasional, I mean, I guess it's more and more. I am getting more calls of just people finding me on Google, or on the websites that we advertise on. A lot of times it's over the phone, you know, where, just like Chris said, like you're interviewing, you're making sure that like, I want to work with this person too. Yeah, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think you guys both kind of touched on why you do it. So Chris talked about, there's 2 weeks of inventory. So securing that relationship so that they don't run off. And I think, Cara, you kind of touched on something too earlier, is that, we can't list a house, right? The rules say we can't put a sign in the yard unless we have an agreement signed. And so it's kind of the same thing with using a buyer broker. We're so quick to put someone in our car, but not gain that commitment and have that employment agreement. And so let's jump into maybe a little bit of scripts and dialogue. So, you touched on including it in the cost sheet. I love that. Chris, how do you what do you say to people when you're going over that buyer broker? I mean, Cara kind of talked a little bit about her scripts, but Chris, maybe you can share a little bit more what you say.
I have a cover sheet, and just paraphrasing it, there's a section that says what I expect of my clients, and then what you can expect from me as your real estate broker. And it's very blunt. It's to be honest and clear in what you're looking for a property, provide clear feedback. When we find a home that meets your criteria and price, that you're ready to make an offer to purchase that property. We also talk about being pre-qualified. I have a client right now, has not completed his pre-qualification. His mortgage officer has not called me back either. So we are not looking at homes, no matter what they say. We're not doing this. I have a packet where we fill out the buyer broker cover sheets, affiliated business disclosure, agency disclosure, buyer advisory, pre-qualification letter, and the wire fraud advisory as well. We go through all that. So it's not just, hey, get in my car, I'm going to be a door opener for you. It's, this is what I'm going to do for you, and this is what you're going to get from my services. And I am very clear with them that this is an interview. It goes both ways. You have to want to work with me, and I have to want to work with you. It has to be a good fit. And if it's not, I'm just going to be honest with you and tell you.
I love that. So
I'm probably a lot more relaxed. I honestly don't have anything signed like that. And even as far as the agency and the buyer broker, and Shannon's probably going to yell at me for this, but I usually, so we have the conversation, okay, whether it's, over the phone or at that first house, in person, but I actually don't have them sign until we basically write the first offer, and it's basically, it's just sent in the DocuSign along with all the rest of the paperwork, the agency and the buyer broker. They're just part of the paperwork. And then once I have it signed that first time, well, I don't have to have it signed again if they don't get that first house, on subsequent offers. But yeah, I'm a little more laxed. I don't have things really signed up front. I really, I could be working with somebody for 3 months and not have it signed. I probably should have the agency signed a lot sooner than that, but I have an implied agency with them for a long time.
And it sounds like you do have the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. We do that right away. Yeah.
Which is very important as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the next question I want to ask is, how do you, Cara, you said you really don't have any objections, but what would be if someone were to give you an objection? Do you have a script for that? What you would say?
I've thought about it. Yeah, I mean, honestly, people don't, I've had people ask questions like, well, why is that? Why wouldn't you be getting paid that? So, and honestly, I sometimes say, I don't know. I don't know why other agents aren't charging what I am and continuing to, reduce their commissions. And I said, and then furthermore, we don't know actually what the listing agent is being paid. So, they could be taking this listing at 6%, which is the same thing that I would charge if I was the listing agent, and they could be offering me just a smaller amount. I don't have that information to even share with you. So this is, it's a decision between the listing agent and their seller. They have that conversation and they decide what they're going to offer to the buyer broker. But I said, but most of the time I say, I think it's because of, our tough seller market, and they're basically just pushing part of what would be traditionally their closing costs on their side onto you, And it's just raising your closing costs. Just like, early on, concessions went away, and then home warranties went away. And then, that sellers weren't going to pay for those things. And now they're coming after part of, and furthermore too, like when I'm, kind of pointing out, I also say, like, yes, there's going to be some that are 2.5 or 2. I said, there's also some listings that I've seen that list for $1. So in those circumstances, this is, you would be paying me that 3%. So some agents are using our MLS in that way, and which is, inappropriate but they're allowed to. So I don't know. It's just, there's questions and it's back and forth. And those are some of the things that I've said,
I think it's important to note, Cara, like you said, those are market driving conditions. What we work for as agents and our value, we may make an individual decision that this might be an easier transaction in less time, and I may charge less for that particular service than I would. And then from the market perspective, I see a lot of comments in here about some of the new construction. That's a great example. A lot of the production builders and the new builds will offer a different amount of compensation based on the market. And it's a negotiating, that's the key though, is that it's a negotiating tool on what the market is dictating and what we're willing to work for. And that's really what it all comes down to.
Yeah. Chris, how about you? How do you overcome objections in getting the buyer broker signed? There we go.
If you don't know the person, or it's not a referral from someone, they might be hesitant to sign. And one of the things I do is I say, well, have you ever bought anything online? Everybody has. Well, how do you know that that's not some Russian troll farm or somebody trying to steal your credit card? You probably look at reviews, correct? And they're usually like, sure. And I said, and sometimes, what's the minimum amount of positive reviews you want to see? And some people will say, I don't know, 10 to 20. And then my response is, I can send you 165 5-star reviews from my past clients. Would that suffice? And most of the time it is. And I can send them a link to those. Now, I still have had people like, well, I don't want to sign a 6-month term. And I said, well, okay, how about a 1-month term? And if they say no to that, how about a 2-week term? No to that, how about a 1-day term? No to that, and say, okay, why don't we go out 1 day and I'll show you what I can do for you. And then after that, we continue the conversation. And for the most part, once you go out with them and they can see how you work, I've had 100% success rate getting it signed. But push comes to shove, if we are not working together if we don't have an employment contract. I don't care if you're my mom, she's going to sign that piece of paper because, and Shannon knows this. Shannon hears all my sob stories sometimes, but my sphere's pretty loyal to me. I'm a Brazilian jiu-jitsu instructor, so I don't have a lot of people run off, but I have had some. And those people that do that, one of the big things they say is, well, you didn't have me sign something. So that stopped right away. It's just, I know my worth. I'm not going to work for somebody that's not going to commit to me. I'm not asking for money out of pocket from you. All I'm asking you is for your commitment in writing. That's it. And most of the time, there's not a lot of objections after that. But I mean, like the person that called and said, how much of your commission are you going to give me? I'm not working with that person ever. Never. That is not going to happen. I'm not that type of agent.
Yeah, I love that. So just a non-negotiable, for you. So I had a situation where, I didn't have a buyer broker signed. I'd been working with this gal for months. We couldn't find something. And it was when the market was starting to change. And she said to me, I just need to take a break this weekend. So she went to a barbecue. Guess what? There was a realtor there who had a listing that fit her needs. That realtor took her to the house. She got the deal done. She calls me on Monday and says, I'm so sorry. And so I didn't have a buyer broker signed. So I was out of luck and months of time spent. And she was very apologetic, but at the same time, like, my bad for not having protected my paycheck on that, right? And so it could be things like they run off, right? Or it could be situations like that where she goes to a barbecue and there happens to be another agent there. So those are things too, you know, that can happen. So Cara, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
I don't know. You guys said it all, I guess.
So I guess, so Chris, you kind of talked about your script, right? That this is a non-negotiable. And, you know, Cara, you talked about it just being a part of the paperwork and, you know, just going through and explaining the commission on properties. And I love that you do a cost sheet. I think that's a huge takeaway, you guys, is to just we run cost sheets for sellers. Why don't we run cost sheets for buyers? And so I think that's a huge takeaway that I think all of us could implement right away into our businesses. And then any other scripts or dialogues, any scenarios that you guys want to share that you feel like, you know, is a good, something that is unique that you do.
I also, and I've done this actually a couple times. So it doesn't work in today's environment, but I had a client, it's probably 18 months ago. And actually I never met the client. It was all, they bought the house, you know, sight unseen across the country. But we had the conversation about the buyer broker, yada, yada. Found a house. And I had said to them, you know, depending on the circumstances of the house, you know, if there's not a lot of other offers on it, we may be able to write into the offer itself for a concession, you know, that would compensate for that difference in the commission, because they were offering me a 2.5% co-broke. And I had even asked the listing agent, hey, would you raise that? And she said no. So there was no other offers on this house. So we wrote it, and we wrote in for 1% back in the concession line, and the sellers accepted it. So basically they paid 0.5% out of that concession, and then they got some extra money towards their closing costs too. So not that it would work in today's environment, but that's another, just like, I have used that twice actually with clients in the past. Like, you know, it goes back a few years, but I have done that.
Okay.
As a way of helping my buyers get that cost covered still by the seller in the end, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. So I would think even maybe, properties are sitting on the market a minute, you might be able to do something like that still, even in this climate. So if there's something sitting on the market for a minute.
Yeah.
Okay, I had another question that popped in my head and then now I forgot. So, so Shannon, did you have any other thoughts on this that you want to contribute?
I just always go back to, you guys have heard me say it a million times. We have worth, and we need to know what our worth is, and we need to know what we're willing to do for what amount. And I think we have value as agents, and I think we sell ourselves short and we don't convey that well to the public and to our clients. And I think Chris and Cara both are very confident in what they do, and they know their worth and they know their value, and they're able to convey that to their clients, and it translates. And I think that's what all agents, and particularly agents working with buyers, should be doing. Why would we ever work for free? Why would anyone expect us to work for free? I wouldn't expect, if I'm hiring someone, I wouldn't expect them to work for free. So I think it's that same conversation. It's an employment agreement. Again, we don't take listings without an employment agreement. Why would we work the other way without one as well? And I think we're selling ourselves short as an industry by not having that be the norm, if you will. And I think it's going to be necessary in the future, because our value, you guys, the internet has changed that. And what we used to have value in, the agent can find us the home. People can find a home. They can find what's for sale. Our value is not that. Our value is all the things we do to protect them and help them stay in compliance with the contract, and explaining the terms and watching those deadlines and negotiating for them and looking out for their best interests above everyone else's, and all those other pieces that we do that we don't convey properly to the public. and they don't understand that value because we're not good at telling them and explaining it. You know, so much for people that we don't tell them about.
Sure. Yeah. And I think that that goes back to having the buyer consultation and explaining exactly what you're going to do and explaining all the crazy things that are happening right now. We're so quick to, you know, one thing I love about our industry is we are innovative, right? We pivot when things happen. And so we come up with these crazy things like, you know, appraisal gaps and waiving things and escalation clauses, things that 25 years ago when I started were not a thing, right? You had cash buyers 25 years ago that would pay for an appraisal, right? Because that's what you did then. And now you don't, right? So we innovate when we change. But I think that the importance of sitting down with someone before you take them out and explaining your value, explaining, Chris, there was someone in the comments that asked if you would share your expectations list. And in one of the momentum classes, it's the buyer conversion class, they actually have a my expectation and your expectation, but maybe Chris would be willing to share his too. So I think that it's critical that we sit down and explain the process to them, explain the pitfalls. It drives me crazy when I see agents put on Facebook that, oh, this house sold in 10 hours, 10 hours with X dollars over asking. We're sending all the wrong messages when we do that. We're chipping away at our own commission when we do that, because we're putting out to the public that, hey, I don't need you, right? The market is hot. I don't need Shannon, I think you're absolutely right with that. I love that as do a cost sheet, right? And Cara, there was a question in the chat about what cost sheet are you using? I think the MLS one's probably what you're using, right?
I actually use, I use Chicago Titles app, and honestly, like I have it on my phone as well as my computer, and it's so easy. And I think it's a blanket one, like they have it for security title, and it's through like Palm Agent or something. I don't know what the, but it's so easy. And like when I started using it, I said to myself, God, I wish I had had this like for the last, because it's just so much easier.
So I wonder, for those of us who use Title Alliance, I wonder if Title Alliance has something like that as an app that we can do cost sheets on. So that's something that maybe we can find out. Nate said he uses Title Capture from Title Alliance. There we go. Thank you, Nate, for answering my question. And the MLS has a great cost sheet too. So that's what I use for sellers, is I use that. Chris, did you have some, let's take him off mute, Alex.
I gotcha. So I'm just going to read it to you. It's very short. It's in my voice. So I would recommend you putting in your, I'm pretty straightforward with people. I don't beat around the bush. You're going to know where you stand with me. And some people like it and some people don't. That's fine. But I'm not going to, this is a business, and I only have I work alone. I only have so much time. And I work with, in this market, I'm only working 4 active buyers at a time. 75% of my business is listings, 25 is buyers. And, right now, if you do a buyer, 95% of your time is going to go for them. So I want to make sure that they exactly know what's going on. You guys good? Do you credit card? Sorry, I'm just paying for this trash out. Can I just take, all set? You got the bill? Yeah, just shoot me a text. Awesome. Thanks, man.
Guys, while Chris is talking, I just want to point out, if you notice, he knows his numbers. He knows how he works, who he wants to work with. He's defined that so that he's not wasting his time with the noise otherwise. And I think that's an important thing as an agent, is to determine, what do I want to do? This is you're a business owner as an individual agent on that level. And you have to be able to define who I want to work, how I want to work, and do all that so that you're not distracted by all the rest and wasting time, so that you can focus and work what will actually close.
Sure. And not feeling desperate that not feeling desperate that you have to take every lead that comes your way. So,
right.
So Chris, you were going to share your expectations with us.
Sorry about that. I had to rush to get a trash out crew over at this probate listing of mine. It's the only time I can get over here. So it just is, it's something, this is the preferred buyer program. And I say what I expect of my clients: to be honest and clear in what you were looking for in a property, to provide clear feedback. And when we find a home that meets your criteria and price, that you are ready to make an offer and purchase that property, to be pre-qualified for a mortgage with a valid pre-qualification letter for a loan. If you are not using financing to purchase, you will provide proof of funds via copy of bank statements. To clarify, the proof of funds needs to be a full bank or investment statement and not a screenshot of your balance. When visiting a new build community without me, that you immediately show the builder sales representative my business card and ask if it is okay to be at the property without me, as well as open houses. If you don't have my business card with you, you will give the builder sales representative my contact information. After leaving the property, you will contact me immediately with the name and location of the community and to work with me exclusively as your buyer's agent. And then I say what you can expect from me: to follow the fiduciary duties of loyalty, obedience, disclosure, confidentiality, and accountings and dealings with you as a buyer, which is right out of the agency disclosure. My only focus is you as a buyer and guiding you through the entire home buying process from contract to closing. I will represent you in not only finding a home, but also in negotiations, making sure you get the best deal possible for the property. As you know, everything we do in real estate is done in writing, including working with the buyer's agent. And that's where the signature comes from. And that is exactly verbatim from Rural Workman's BAM program.
Nice. I
A
love
lot
it.
of this is right from the Rural Workman, where I just kind of like, oh, I like that. I like that. That's a cool quote, boom, boom, and just put it together. But it's more often than, but I do not say that it's a free service. Absolutely not, because it's not. Because someone is paying for it, either the seller or the buyer. So, and then it just says, welcome to the preferred buyer program. You sign that. This is it's not a legal document, but it gets them used to making the commitment of signing and agreeing to things. And then I have the affiliated business disclosure for the brokerage, agency disclosure, buyer advisory, the AAR pre-qualification letter, or entire proof of funds via bank statements, and then the wire fraud advisory. So you're already getting all this paperwork done. So then the first time that you write a contract, it's not like, hey, we've got 76 things to go through. They've already signed a lot of things, and they're already, it's getting them used to using DocuSign, it's getting them used to signing things, and it's seeing if they're going to actually do it. I have a client right now that their buyer broker is expired, and they keep calling me. There is a buyer broker waiting for them via DocuSign. He has not opened it. That means that each time he calls, I say, did you sign the buyer broker agreement? So, oh, no, I got this question. And I said, I need you to sign that buyer broker agreement. We've talked about this before. And we're at a stalemate right now. And it's just, but this is a client that I took on that I actually told my wife, okay, when I start, venting about this client, remind me that I knew that I was going to have some problems or some pushback, but we're out of contract. I don't work for free, and I don't work for someone that is not under an employment contract right now. So we're kind of in limbo. But would you rather be in limbo in your office or showing 77 homes and then not knowing if this person's going to be loyal to you? I will not do that.
Are there 77 homes to show him?
Probably not. Maybe you have to go to Texas or something, or New Mexico. But it's just, and it wasn't always like this. I only started using these religiously about 3 years ago because I just got tired of just doing all this work and people just running off. But there's so many agents out there. There's agents out there that will do this for free. And I tell people, do you really want to have somebody work for free for you? When you call, are they going to answer your phone? No, they're not. They're going to answer the phone call the person that's committed to working with them. And that's just how it is. And like I said, I'm pretty straightforward with people, and some people might not like that, but you're going to know where you stand with me. Sometimes you have to have tough conversations. I tell people I have tough conversations for a living. Difficult conversations. So it's not a problem. If you're used to having, just get it over with. Just open the conversation, have a conversation with them, and there's so many agents right now. I know we have about 800 members at our gym. I think I know 15 people that are getting their real estate license right now. 15. Now you're going to have a certain percentage that, don't pass the test, and you're going to have a certain percentage that goes there. But I know somebody in East Valley, he's like, I'll just do this for free just to get some experience. And I said, well, more power to you. I'm not doing that. Good luck.
And if you get sued, what's your E&O deductible? That just
And get
doesn't-
some general liability insurance too.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, wow. Okay, well, let's open it up for questions. We're 10 minutes till, so I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So let's open it up for some questions. I saw a few things in the chat. Thank you guys for sharing some of your resources and things. And Nate put the link for Title Alliance for the app to do cost sheets. Any questions? Anybody doing something unique that they want to share that maybe we haven't touched on here? Because I know, I mean, there's 49 people on this Zoom, so there's probably some of you agents that are doing buyer brokers. So let's have a little bit of a discussion.
If we are waiting for someone, I will share something. Does anyone, I have always felt like you have to put things in perspective for people sometimes in terms of, it's not just saying, here's what I'm going to do, here's what I'm going to do, here's what I'm going to do. It's here's my experience and something that I've run into before. Would you be prepared for that if you didn't have me who has that experience to handle that for you? And here's how we navigated that situation. So it's kind of scaring them with some of those horror stories, because we all know them and have them, and explaining how we're going to try to protect them in those situations. And what it does is it plants that seed of doubt that they can't do it themselves, because we do have the experience and we do have the knowledge. We just don't always remember all of those things. And so using those kind of horror stories or tough ones are the ones that tend to help someone understand why they need you to protect them in those situations. And it's not always going to be roses and perfect transaction, but you have to tell them that ahead of time as well. And here's what we're going to do to try to navigate this if we run into this bump in the road or that bump in the road, and all those things, because that's where we do have so much value in protecting them and looking out for their best interests,
Well, and it's even resources too. I'm thinking about, when I sold my house in Prescott, my Remax agent there, he had resources, because some of you know my horror story of selling that house. And so he had resources of people that I needed beyond the real estate transaction, a lawyer specifically, to help me. So, and being able to dive into that. So those are other things that we offer as well. And I love when I see those emails come out, and Rick Ramirez I think he's got a resource for every part of this industry. And he's the first one to always respond with a great contact. So any other, let's again, questions, comments, anybody doing anything special that they want to share? There's a whole lot of you on here.
I just tell everybody, know your worth. And people respond to, confidence, and, if we're not going to negotiate for ourselves, how are we negotiating for our clients? So, I think people naturally respond to that. So, and that's honestly, maybe that's why I just really have not had much pushback at all. At all. People say, yeah, of course. That's usually what the response, oh yeah, of course I would pay you that difference. Yeah. So I don't know. I think we overthink it.
Maybe.
I think honestly, we get in our own heads and we overthink it. Because I will tell you, I've had this conversation with my mother and my sister, because they have not, employed the buyer broker like I have over the years. And Jennifer, I don't know if she's on this or not, but she made a lot less money than I did this year because
sibling rivalry.
But it's true, because she's just like, well, I don't care. It's, it's just money. And I'm like, I know, Jennifer, but it's not about the money. It's about, having a policy. And also, I mean, in terms of fair housing, we should be treating everybody the same, and why is it that we get paid on 2% on one deal and 2.5% on the other and 3% on this one? We should kind of have a standard for us. I'm not saying as an industry, but for us as an individual. So
can I hop in? Can you hear me? Cara's convinced me. Been doing this a long time, and she has harped and harped and harped, and it's all about, Mom, what are you worth? And a lot of it is taking that and really internalizing it. And yes, I do use the buyer broker. And part of it is that almost 99% of everybody I work with is a past client or a referral from a past client. So, but the other thing is I am having the buyer broker agreement signed. I do talk about it, and then I do send it out with the paperwork, just like Cara does. And it's been a little tough, you know, old dogs don't like new tricks, but I'm learning and I am doing it. And Chris, that comment about that buyer right now, that you're not talking to him until he signs it. I did have an instance where you just knew that client, well, they weren't a client, that customer was just going to beat you up over and over again. And I remember meeting them early one morning to show them a property. And I had the buyer broker agreement with me. And this is quite a few years ago. And I said, if we're going to continue to work together and I have the agreements that I want you to sign, that you're going to be working with me. And they went, well, we're not signing anything. I said, okay, fine, let's go. And I started walking out the door of the house I was showing, because you just know if they give you that kind of pushback, they're not worth, well, your time is worth more than that.
Well, and there's the risk factor too. We've all had those situations where we know, right, that this person could potentially be a lawsuit waiting to happen. So
Exactly.
Roberta, you raised your hand, so you want to come off mute?
Thank you. I don't use a buyer broker. Cara, you are inspirational, and you proverbially kicked me in the butt. So thanks. I'll try harder because I made less than you too. I'm friends with Jennifer. Anyway, I just wanted to share an experience I had 2 weeks ago. I had a referral come to me, and he's over in California, wants to buy a building. That's great. We're having a conversation. We go, down that rabbit hole. I've got his specs and whatever. And he says, okay, what do you need to have me sign to authorize you to go work for me? And I was like, because I'd never used a buyer broker. And I said, I didn't do that, but in my brain I was. And I said, oh, thank you for that. Yes, I will send something over. It'll come in DocuSign. This is what it'll say. And I went into a conversation about it. But it was the first time that I had somebody step up and ask me for the document. And I thought, if the consumer is savvy enough to ask me for that document, I can be savvy enough to do it myself in the other direction. So I just wanted to share that the consumers, I think, are going to quickly start becoming savvy on this.
I hope so. I hope so. Thank you for sharing that. That's a great story. So any other questions or comments? Chris or Cara, any final thoughts before we wrap up? Go ahead, both of you.
Yeah, when I first started in 2001, I think it's probably 2002, taking these people around, and they're kind of squirrely. And I was really young in the industry and didn't really know how to see the warning signs. Went to a property. And I said, oh, the listing agent's coming over. He can answer all our questions. Like, oh, we got to leave. That's really weird. Really weird. So I sent him a buyer broker agreement. I said, I need you to sign this. She goes, I can't sign that. I already signed one. So you're either going to find out, you're going to do a lot of work and find out later. If you just set the tone, this is how I do business. This is the professional way to do business. If you don't want to do business how I want to do business, then we're not doing business together. It's just going to happen that way. I only have a certain amount of time I can dedicate to buyers, and especially like I said, especially in this market. And I've fired several buyers over the past year. Their buyer broker expired, sent them a letter. I will not be renewing this buyer broker agreement. It was great working with you. Really enjoyed getting to know you, and I will not be renewing this. And I had my wife look it over and she said, you're not telling them why you're not renewing. Clear is kind, just be upfront. And I said, the reason why I'm not renewing this buyer broker is you lack the sense of urgency to buy a home in this market. Never heard from them again, ever. I was expecting to have some, choice language coming back at me, but they know exactly where they stand with me. And regardless of them liking that message, I'm being honest with them. I'm not, you're gonna know exactly where you stand as a client with me. And this morning, coming over here, I'm doing a trash out at a property, preparing a listing, and the seller would not sign I have a property, like a trash out disclosure, basically giving me authorization. It's directing me to clear the house out. And then it's removing us, RE/MAX professionals, everybody of any liability from that. So they can't come back and say, well, you trashed out my dad's couch that was worth $8 million. It's already signed. I'm on the phone coming over here saying, you have not signed this property disclosure agreement, or the trash out disclosure agreement. You need to sign this. You said you were going to sign it last night. He goes, well, I'll sign it in 4 hours. I said, well, guess what? We're going to have to I'm going to cancel this trash out, and you're going to hire somebody to do it, because this is the second time you've done this. And he pulled over and signed it. You have to stand by I do business a certain way. If you don't want to do business with me, cool. I'll find somebody else that does. There's plenty of people out there who need help. So don't feel like that one buyer is going to make or break you. And when you're first starting out in the industry, you really want to get a sale. You can do other things besides work with somebody who's going to waste your time and not commit to using you. And I honestly wish I would have done this for my whole career, because it would have, I get a lot of past client referrals and everything. And it's just, when somebody burns you like that, I don't think people understand that that's a betrayal of trust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's, hey, you cheated on me. I don't tolerate that in my business life, and I surely don't tolerate that in my personal life. So it's just one of those things. It's you've got to find your voice on how to convey this message. And if you don't stand up for yourself, somebody's going to roll right over you. So just, maybe come up with some kind of alter ego that's super confident and get this stuff signed. But you can test this out when people call you too. When you get a call from a buyer that's not serious, just use them as the role play. See if they'll do it. And then if you don't want to work with them, don't do it. You really have to know your worth with so many people getting into this industry right now. Same thing happened in 05, 06. All those people left when the market cooled. The longer you stay in this industry, the higher your chances you have of succeeding. Just don't give up. Just keep after it.
Love that. Thank you, Chris. Cara, you got any final thoughts?
No, I mean, I love it, like, go out there, go get it, go sell. I guess the only last thing I'd say is, we work with a lot of people who, we're listing their house, and then we're trying to, they're going and buying something too. Those are our opportunities to say, like, for your loyalty and for, working both sides, like, yes, in those, usually we do a little bit of a reduction on one side or the other. So it's not like it's a, fast and hard, like Shannon said, like, everything is negotiable, but we start from this is where we start from, like, always.
Yeah,
So, and one more thing, my mom said the other day, because she said, I don't know, it got brought up again, like, somebody had a 2% out there or something. And my mom said, yeah, Cara, but prices have gone up so much, so it kind of makes up for it. And I said, Mom, if you do a search of PV right now, Paradise Valley real estate, and you look at what those agents, offer co-broke wise, like 3% is the, that's what people offer, it's like, anyway, and those are $1 million plus properties. So it doesn't really have to do with the price of the property. Like, that was my point to her was, like, we just need to like, pick what we feel we're worth, and, go
Take
from
that
there.
out. Cindy, you have a question?
Yeah, no, you know what? I just have a couple comments. The way I handle the buyer brokers is, I mean, I put the form in front of them and briefly go through it. And I put a clause at the end. I said, you know, after our first day together, in the event you don't feel comfortable with me, then we'll tear this up and you can go do your own thing. So that this is mainly for people who maybe don't know me yet and they're strangers. And that takes away the people that are genuinely wanting to buy a house, but are afraid to sign things. And that has just always worked for me. And I've never had anybody call me the next morning and say, you know what, we don't like how you chew gum. So we want you to tear that up. But I can't imagine, especially in the current market, anybody not having a signed contract with a buyer and going out and going through all the grief of showing and trying to sell a house to a buyer and going through, you know, trying to sell them 20 different houses. I mean, oh my God. So anyway, that's all I got to say. But yeah, just give them an easy out and, after 24 hours, okay, you can say bye. But other than that, we're married. So there.
Love that. Awesome way to end. So it's 10:04. And I just want to remind everyone, as Shannon said, that you guys decide what you want to charge for commissions. Cara has talked about what she charges, but this really wasn't about commissions per se. This was more about the practice of how do you protect your paycheck and how do you ultimately protect the client as well, right? There's a lot of agents out there running around and, we care about these people. So it's the same kind of thing as an ER, right? We treat the buyer broker the same. So thank you guys all for being here. You guys have a great day. If you need anything from me, please reach out. Cara and Chris and Shannon, thank you guys so much for your time today and sharing your pearls of wisdom. I think all of us gained a lot from this. And again, if you guys need anything, please reach out. Have a fantastic day and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.